The secrets to living longer are simple. And the first question the 35-year-olds or the 20-year-olds ask is, really? Am I worried about it? And then when you're up to 85, you go, do I have to? The message is simple. There are some really simple strategies that you can adapt and adopt in your lifestyles that can make a big difference. And of course, what it depends on though is if you're going to look at the humans who have lived longer, as in the long-lived populations around the world, or the studies done on mice and cells and all the test animals. And I like to combine them. But the critical one is to get the basics right first. And that's by looking at the long-lived populations around the world. And when you look at them, and there's a dozen or so around the world, and there are little microcosms of them around the world, you can see certain characteristics that stand out. Now, I should tell you, I gave my first lecture on living longer in 1990, a long time ago. And I've had this interest in fact, we're now looking at the gut role in living longer, which I'm sure you'll love to see that video. So the message is, first of all, I've broken it down into the environment. People who live longer, the populations who live longer, not the individuals, but the populations who live longer, have a low or no pollution environment. They're out there much more in the wild, the country, the rural areas around the world. They're not in big city populations with all their hectic bustle and stresses and so on. Outdoors, they spend a significant part of their lives outdoors. They're daily outdoors, winter and summer, a little bit outdoors. And it's a low energy environment. In other words, they're not consuming huge amounts of energy to keep the house warm and cool and so on. They go in and out, and they don't have all that electromagnetic frequency around them. Now, if that's a factor or not, I don't know. You see, each one of these are like little pieces of a puzzle that you can put together and say, is that important or not? It varies. Now, this is really important, the social environment. The social environment plays a huge role in living longer. And the first and most important is the family. The more family you've got close to you that you can live and interact with, the longer you live. Yep, so having the brothers, the sisters, the mums, the dads, the spouses, the children, the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren is all critical. And having them as close as possible is really important to living longer. It's a support mechanism, clearly. And then you've got friends, close friends. The more close friends you've got, more likely to live longer. And if you're in a community-based, where you can interact with people. And that's not saying you have to go up and shake everyone's hand, but just say hi as you go past. Shows up in terms of happy populations, long-lived populations, and so on. Local work, all long-lived populations do local work. They live and work in the local area, and they normally get to it by a simple walk, simple public transport, bicycle, whatever it is. It's a really convenient, easy way to get to. It's not stressful hours on roads and so on. This is a bit of a hint if you live in an urban area, a big city. They're not rich, and they're usually not professional, as in having a professional career. And the message there is, well, we say, well, you know, does money bring you wealth? Well, money does bring conveniences which enable you flexibility, and it does increase happiness a little bit along the way, up to a point. However, it doesn't actually extend your life. And I know some of the richest people in the world, when they died, they just said, I'd give it all up to live a little bit longer. Because with richness and professionalism comes a lot of stress. In fact, the studies on happiness show that some of the most unhappy people, the work environments in the world, are the highly professional ones, the lawyers, the accountants, where there's huge amounts of stress. And as you'll see, stress is a big player in living longer as well. And then you've got happy people. So people who tend to be a little bit more positive in their life, a little bit more gregarious, people who are willing to say hi and have a quick chat and move on. They're the people who live longer, or the communities that tend to live longer. And they do it almost as a community because it's an accepted part of that community and how they function together. Then you've got eating. And we put a lot of emphasis on eating, but eating is easily overridden by all of these other things. For example, stress, which I'll mention in a moment. But if you're doing all the right things eating, but still really stressed, guess what? You're actually destroying all the benefits of that healthy eating and so on, or at least most of it along the way. So coming back to it, small, nutritious, varied meals. It's not the same old meal every single day. It's not the same breakfast, it's not the same lunch, it's not the same dinner. It varies. Every single meal has a bit of variation and overlap. It's simple and it's omnivorous. So they're not vegetarians, they're not carnivores. They're the people who eat whatever's around available at the season, at the time. So they tend to eat more seasonally. No processed foods absolutely don't exist in these communities, and certainly not a part of it, well, until now. And a lot of local produce. And in the question of alcohol, the response is, well, many of them do, but they'll have a glass or two and no more. It's not a big drinking community. And the message is that alcohol has no real benefits, but a little bit won't hurt in these populations who are already at 90 or 100, and in the super centenarians, which are 110, and so on. Lifestyle comes down to the active. And it's not going to the gym, it's not doing all the weights, it's not doing all the bodybuilding and stuff. It's actually just being active every single day. Every single day you get up, you move and walk, and mainly about walking and using the upper part of your body and maintaining that strength in the upper arms and legs. The studies really show, when you look at the studies in the big city areas and so on, where people tend to live longer, some of those studies indicate that walking and the strength ratio in your hands and arms are critical factors in you living longer as well, because you tend not to fall over, have accidents, and do all these other things. So this is supported time and time again. You've got to be active, you've got to use your whole body. Simple lifestyle, it's not complex, it's not overly worried about all these other things in life. Low stress, very low stress by comparison to what we have in the 21st century, where we're taught to stress about everything, and we've got all the added stresses of social media and so on. And yes, it is a major stress for some people out there. Frequently outside. Interestingly, they're low to no medical intervention, and usually the intervention is right at the end. So you're saying, hold on, but don't they need medicine to get through? You may not be aware, but in the US, the Journal of American Medical Association reported that one of the studies in there reported that something like 100,000 people die from the correct dosage of medication given by professionals and following that advice every single year. Now imagine the number that gets sick as a result of variations in that. So medicine may have its benefits, but it's also got serious downfalls, which are often ignored in our society. And the last thing is they rely a lot on natural health, which is their own local community wisdom in terms of health and well-being. So with all these in mind, you go, okay, so what do I need to do? Well, it's one of these. Which ones of these can you implement in your life? Which ones of these can you implement in your life? And the other one is, of course, subscribe to the button below. Join my YouTube, follow me along, because I'll be showing you so much more in terms of living longer, gut health, overall health, but based on science, not hype, and definitely not trying to sell you a product. So subscribe and share to as many people as possible.